Arrowhead just followed up yesterday's Premium Superstore Assault Rifle and Armor Set release with 2 new free primary weapons and an entire new free armor set as well. So if you've been out of the loop and are wondering what the heck is going on in Helldivers 2, don't worry, I'm here to clear things up for you. Also, of course, I've gone ahead and tested out both of the new weapons on each of the factions in the game to get a good feeling of it, as well as the new armor set as well. So we'll talk about all that in a second. First, let's go over what exactly has been going on in a very summarized manner, and let's try to do that in under a minute. Essentially, Arrowhead, Helldivers development team, has been running surveys over the past few months and have found a huge player interest in crossover events between games, where Helldivers would implement cool armors, skins, and even weapons from popular gaming titles. And Killzone, a classic FPS game developed by Guerrilla Games, is the first iteration of this new crossover approach in Helldivers, where they've released a bunch of new weapons, a support weapon, some armor sets, and skins as well. So instead of making a themed warbond where players can take their sweet time working through each warbond at their own pace, Arrowhead decided to release the new crossover items through the Superstore. And as you probably already know, the Superstore is on a constant rotation with the items available in Helldivers 2, and the more items introduced to Helldivers 2, the lower the chance there is for a specific item to reappear. So in other words, it created the sense that if you don't rush to get these weapons now, they'll disappear for God knows how long, and you might very well lose your chance. And well, players are very familiar with this FOMO tactic in other video games, and players were pissed. So Arrowhead took a step back from releasing the items in 2 different parts through the Superstore, and just gave the entire second part for free. Okay, so that was a bit over a minute, I think, but I hope that clears the air on that. All I have to say is, Arrowhead is fantastic at listening to their community. They've proven this time and time again. Don't get me wrong, it's still important for players to express their opinions, but don't insult the developers directly. They have absolutely nothing to gain from trying to screw you over. Now enough with the news. We're not a news channel. We're a gaming geek who enjoys murdering AI enemies the most efficient way possible. So with that said, let's check out the new stuff and let's see if they're any good. First, let's start off with the armor set. The reason why I want to start with the armor set is because we've covered this armor passive yesterday. Today's version is just a light armor version of it. And we said everything I wanted to say about the acclimated armor passive yesterday, but let's kind of summarize what I said. The acclimated armor passive is going to be a fantastic choice for players who enjoy playing in groups, because you've got teammates bringing gas strikes, teammates bringing napalm strikes, you've got players bringing arc throwers and blitzer shotguns with electrical damage, and this armor set will just neglect a lot of that team damage and spare you of a lot of accidental deaths. On top of all that, this armor passive will also of course assist you in surviving against enemies that deal those types of damage, such as Hulks with their fire damage, Bio-Titans and Hunters with their acid damage, and Harvesters with their electrical damage, just to name a few examples. And god damn it, I have to say it, I think this is the coolest looking light armor and helmet in the game. Now let's go ahead and check out the new primary weapons introduced today, and let's go ahead and start with the new SMG. The new SMG is called the StA-11 SMG, and I find it resembles closest to the MP98 Knight SMG. Both of them bolster 65 damage per shot. They're both one-handed and light armor penetrating, and they carry about the same ammo count. The Knight bringing 50 ammo, while the StA-11 brings 48. However, both still bring the same amount of 7 spare mags, so keep that in mind. Both of them also have a very similar time to reload. I'm not exactly sure if it's the same reload time down to the millisecond, but in the testing I've done, they both seem to take about 2.5 seconds to reload from empty mags, or a 1.8 second tactical reload, which is reloading before the mag is completely empty. But they differ in the fire rate to recoil ratio. The Knight is going to have a faster fire rate with an increased recoil, while the StA-11 will have a slightly lower fire rate with a slightly lower recoil as well. So when testing the StA-11 against Terminids, you'll find an easy time dealing with the smaller, less armored guys, and again, that's the Hunters, Nursing Spewers, Pouncers, Scavengers, and even Alpha Commanders, but you will find yourself struggling against anything bigger. better, and we'll definitely have to rely on support weapons for those. It is worth noting though that much like the Knight, it is really good at dealing with the smaller guys, so definitely keep that in mind when building your Helldiver. Don't just automatically avoid it. As for the Automatons, you'll of course shine when bringing a directional shield or with a ballistic shield to make the most use out of the one-handed potential. It's going to be a bit challenging to hit Devastator's little weak spot, as it's quite a tough shot to make, and the increased fire rate will bring its own fair share of challenges controlling the recoil. But on the other hand, you'll shed through berserkers like it's no one's business. For the Illuminates, we're once again looking at a weapon that will perform greatly at dealing with swarms. You've got tons of ammo to handle tons and tons of zombies with no problem, but once again, much like the StA assault rifle, you'll struggle against overseers. So much like the other SMGs in the game, the StA-11 SMG will have a very specific role of clearing chaff, or that is the smaller units, and you will have a very easy time at doing so. Keeping this in mind, this also means that chances are the StA-11 will decrease in its potential as you ramp up the difficulty as the amount of armored units increase. Not to say it's going to be useless, it just isn't going to be the greatest choice. Now moving on to the big talk in town, the game's very first sniper rifle, the PLAS-39 Accelerator rifle. First, looking at its base statistics, we're looking at a medium armor penetrating weapon with explosives, 350 damage, and 9 shots per mag. But don't let this deceive you, as this weapon fires in 3-shot bursts with no way to turn it off, but it does have a very tiny recoil and quite a decent fire rate. When comparing this with the only other weapon that was considered a sniper rifle in the game, the Diligence Counter Sniper, the Accelerator rifle has more damage than the Diligence, has explosions where the Diligence doesn't, has way less recoil, and it shoots faster as well. So let's see how this baby performs in the battlefield. Starting off with the faction I consider to perform the worst against. For the Terminids, you're going to be one bursting everything that's small, such as hunters and warriors, but also the bigger guys as well, such as alpha commanders, hive guards, and even armored bile spewers, as long as you're shooting their face. 2 bursts if you fire at their body. Now, ammo is going to be a massive problem against Terminids, and in my opinion, there just isn't enough armored units for you to bring a sniper rifle in the first place against Terminids, even if you're playing in a group. I honestly would just avoid snipers in general against them, but either way, that's up to you. Back to its performance. For a charger, you can't damage it from the front as it's only a medium armor penetrating weapon, but when firing at the butt, I'm happy to say it only takes about 3 bursts, which will do the job, even when doing that against the behemoth charger. As for impellers, you're looking at about 4 bursts to the neck, which again, seeing how it fires so quickly, you can kind of do that oftentimes without it even landing an attack on you. And lastly, for Bile Titans, the only place you can damage is its chest, and it took me about 18 or so different bursts to kill them, which isn't great, but isn't terrible either. It might be the best primary weapon in the game at doing that, but either way, still not an ideal way to take down Titans. Next up, let's take a look at its performance against the Illuminates. As it stands, we've only got 4 enemy types for them. First, the hordes of zombies. Pretty obvious how it's gonna perform there. It's pretty terrible. And the explosion of it is not nearly large enough to make up for it. Definitely a huge pass there. For the scout drone, you'll need to hit more than one of your shots from your burst, so be really careful so you don't end up hitting them with one shot, making them call a reinforcement before you can even put it down. As for the overseers, this would be the obvious enemy to use this weapon against, but I'll say, I'm surprised it actually takes multiple bursts to kill. 2 to be exact. Unless you're dead accurate in its head, with all 3 shots per burst, which will then indeed kill it in 1 burst. As for the harvesters, it's a pleasant surprise, about 4 to 5 bursts and you'll kill these massive units fairly easily. You can also get rid of their shield generator pretty easily and their shields, so keep that in mind. Now as for the automatons, this is where I find the sniper rifle truly shines, as you might already expect. It's pretty simple. If the sniper can damage it, it absolutely shreds it. So basically, troopers are of course 1 hit, gunships take 2 bursts on an engine to kill, devastators are 2 bursts regardless of where you hit, And one thing I find amazing is that it also applies to if you just shoot at the shield on the heavy devastators. Still only a 2 burst on those guys, and that's just lovely. For Hulks, you can't damage the front, but 2 bursts on the back kills them. For Berserkers, 1 good burst kills them as well. On turrets and tanks heatsink, about 3 bursts gets rid of them. And on reinforced rocket striders, only 1 burst either on their hip or their legs is enough to kill them as well. So as expected, this weapon really shines against the automatons. I'm even gonna go out on a limb here and say that it's probably a top 3 automaton primary weapon in the game right now. But of course, it's way too early to tell. There's still a lot of further testing to be done with it. So that pretty much sums it up for today's new weapons and armor release. I had a Wasp launcher gameplay I was about to post as this all dropped, so I'll probably have to delay that upload by a few days, or even maybe just straight up scrap the video. I'm not sure yet. I'll probably have to at least redo the entire intro. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, man. I'll be catching you legends on the next one. Peace!